Good afternoon. I have a question for you. Have you ever been walking into a restaurant or a grocery store and seen a homeless person? Sometimes they'll stand outside in front of the establishment and they'll say, "We'll work for food," or they'll ask you for some change. Sometimes they have the little signs on the cardboard. Well, that happened to me. Recently, we were going into a grocery store and there was a person standing outside and he asked for some money for food. That made me think, with all of these large corporations and companies, why do we have such a large homeless population that does not have food? Why are people starving in the United States when we throw away so much food every year? And upon thinking about that, I said, not only why, but what can we do to change that? What could be our plan of action? Individually, each one of us, and collectively as a community, a society, and a country. So, in my journey to find out why and how and what, I stumbled across an article by Harrison Jacobs that was titled, "Here's Why Wasted Food Doesn't Get to Poor People." This article states that the United States alone throws out over 1/3 of the food that it produces each year. Those numbers are staggering. In terms that we can all understand, what that means is that we produce and throw out over 133 billion pounds of food each year. That's amazing. Those numbers are staggering. With a population of homeless and people that do not have food in our country as big as it is, those numbers should not be accepted. So I want to find out why. Why do we trash food? Why do we throw away and waste so much food every year? So I started looking into some articles. I read another article by Harrison Jacobs, and this one was called "Why Wasted Food is Not Given to the Poor." In this article, Jacobs states that sometimes it's an issue with allergies. People have allergies. They associate the allergies with certain foods. A lot of times foods that have been thrown out. People may get sick, and it's not necessarily the food that's making them sick. It's the allergy to the food. It doesn't even have to be spoiled or tainted food. So then I said, okay, that's a good point. But looking at it from a big company standpoint, why would you throw away billions of tons of food every year? What are we doing? Billions and billions of pounds of food being trashed and people are hungry. What is the main reasons? That's what I wanted to know so that we could attack it from the head on. And what I found out was in an article by Tamana Morfretra, the article was entitled, "Why Don't More Businesses Donate Food to the Poor?" Now, in this article, she states two main reasons why businesses refuse to give their leftover, still good food to the poor. The first reason was retailers and restaurants in general tend to think that they will be sued by the people that are partaking of the food. A lot of times homeless people will, grab food from the dumpster, or they'll do things that could make them sick. It's not the actual food that's making them sick though. It could be that the environment that the food was in. So retailers feel that this is, and restaurants feel that this is a liability, a legal liability. They don't want to deal with it. So that's the number one reason why corporations do not donate food to the homeless. In the same article, another reason that Tamana stated was that corporations just flat out feel like it's not worth the legal risk. It's a legal risk for them to, say, here, you can have this food, but then if we're going to be sued, we're trying to do something nice for people, and then it's going to come back on us. So they said, we just don't want to mess with it. So then I said, okay, so there has to be something. It can't just be that. It can't just be that cut and dry. So I researched a little further, and what I found out in an article by the USDA that was titled "Food Waste Challenge." And in this article, the USDA themselves took on the big scope of, let's find out why these corporations are wasting all this food. Now, When we talk about wasted food, we think about not only the food that someone could be eating that's hungry, but also when you throw out food, it causes more waste. And so it's more waste for the community to have to clean up. And we already have a situation in our country now where our landfills are overfilled. So if these people could eat the food, then we'd have less waste. So it would kill two birds with one stone per se. Basically, it would help the homeless and it would help with the waste situation. So then I said, okay, so if we could do that, what's the protection for these people or these corporations that's going to donate this unused safe food? In that same article, as I read further down, I found out that in 1996, Congress passed a bill entitled Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act. And what it is, this bill actually protects any individual, corporation, company, restaurant, farmer, any entity that is willing to give food to the homeless or to the poor based on a goodwill act. They're protected. That means if they give food to those that don't have or to the needy, they will be protected by law and they cannot sue them for whatever reason. They will have legal protection and no obligation. So that being said, I said, well, then why aren't all the corporations and the companies and the restaurants giving food to the poor? Because they have a legal protection now that these people can't sue them. So you can do a good deed and not be penalized for it. So as I read into this, I read another article about dumpster diving, which I found very interesting in this article. And this article was titled, There is an Insane Amount of Food in the Dumpsters Being Held Behind Trader Joe's. And this article was based on another investigation by Mr. Harrison Jacobs. And what Mr. Jacobs found is he did a week study where he went out and he actually dumpster dived with some of the people in the street in New York City. And what he found out was that the dumpsters behind these major restaurants were full of food, fresh food, good food that could be used. And nobody was taking advantage of it. So the homeless were going in after the restaurant closed and they were gathering up food and they were eating the food. And so in this research and as he was watching, Mr. Jacobs actually noticed that one of the people that worked, the cashiers that worked at one of the restaurants, the Starbucks restaurant, she came out and actually said to the people that were dumpster diving, please clean up when you finish. Now, let me explain. Dumpster diving in some areas is illegal and could have a majority of just a smorgasbord of legal obligations and legal stipulations if that person is caught doing it. It's also unsafe. So if our restaurants and our communities would pull together and donate these foods, then the people would not be obligated to go out and dumpster dive, and their safety would not be at risk. So that's another reason that we need to encourage our communities to do something immediately. And one thing that we have done in the U.S. is we have, as of 2011, as a matter of fact, we started a process called gleaning. And the gleaning process is where corporations and farmers are able to donate huge portions of food to the homeless without any legal repercussions. In 2011 alone, 900,000 pounds of food was donated, thanks to gleaning. As a society and a community, we could do this. We could encourage these big supermarkets and these big retailers to donate. And in doing that, we could save a lot of people. So I encourage each and every one of you, get out in your communities, encourage them to do so. Thank you.